Tonight, a fragile peace shattered. We report from inside Syrian cities shaken by the worst violence since the fall of the Assad regime. How the country descended into revenge bloodshed and the massacre of Alawites, the ousted president's religious minority.
They attacked us just like that, slaughtered us, our friends, our neighbours, our children, our relatives, our in-laws. All of them were slaughtered.
So ahead, face to face with the Londoner accused of being an ISIS fighter. Rare access to a Syrian prison, holding men considered to be Islamic State's most dangerous foreign recruits.
I can promise you that most of us are absolute no threat to anyone outside. I mean, we've had a lot of time. We've been now 6 years in prison. We've had a lot of time to sit and think.
But those who've locked them up say ISIS is regrouping and wants the prisoners back in its ranks. And inside the detention camps for ISIS families, open threats from children who've known little else than a caged existence. Hello, good evening, and welcome to this special edition of The World, focusing tonight on Syria. And for a country that had spent so long in the grip of war, the months that followed Bashar al-Assad's fall from power in December had brought relative peace. But that was broken in the past few weeks with massacres and violence that threatened the unity project pursued by Syria's new rulers. Well, it began in response to a fledgling insurgency by fighters loyal to the ousted president. Armed groups were then called on to crush it. UK-based observers say that more than 1,400 people were killed in cities including Latakia, Tartus, Hama and Homs. Many of the dead were civilians from the Alawite community, the religious minority that the Assad family belonged to. Our chief correspondent, Stuart Ramsay, has heard the first accounts of what happened and reports now from the Latakia region.
This was an explosion of violence. Supporters of the former dictator Bashar al-Assad attacking government security forces, civilians, checkpoints, cities and towns. All targets of a coordinated attack. There were running battles in the cities of Jabla and Latakia as Assad loyalists threatened to overthrow the new government in the country's Mediterranean coastal region. It started on Thursday, March the 6th. Hundreds of soldiers and Sunni Muslim civilians were killed. By Friday, answering a call for reinforcements, thousands of militia, some loosely affiliated to the government, began arriving to put down the uprising. Heavily armed vehicles and men gathering on the main coastal highway. Through Friday and into Saturday, Alawites, a minority group which the Assad family is part of, were targeted. Their villages were destroyed and are now battered and virtually deserted. As many as 10,000 Alawites are now camping in a Russian airbase, seeking shelter, watched on by Russian soldiers who remain inside the base. As we arrived, we were surrounded. All these people described being burnt out of their homes and family members murdered in cold blood in revenge.
The people died.
Mainly men, but women and children as well. They trust nobody now and want international help.
They attacked us just like that, slaughtered us, our friends, our neighbours, our children, our relatives, our in-laws. All of them were slaughtered. They stormed the houses shooting.
Some of the thousands are in tents or under makeshift cover. Others are sleeping rough or in their cars. We were told that whole families had been killed, with some buried in mass graves. Not far away, in the village of Al-Sanabar, we found one. 2 trenches were dug under cover of darkness by the villagers, and 80 people were buried here. The sticks in the earth signify a body buried beneath. We are told a family of 17 are in one of the graves. Convoys of government security forces are now patrolling all the areas where the killings took place. They're trying to encourage the Alawites to return to their villages, saying it is now safe. But the head of security for the whole region admits what happened was unacceptable and terrifying and mustn't happen again.
The Ministry of Defense, Public Security Department and police units were there to protect the people. Many individuals from the countryside surrounding the coast came seeking revenge.
We've been to villages, we've been to the airbase, 9,000 and 10,000 people are there. They tell us, and we've seen the videos, I'm sure you have, of terrible killings. The people are absolutely terrified. What could you do to convince them to go home and to convince them that they're safe? Because they're too scared to go home.
طبعا نحن يعني حقيقة استخدمنا قوات أمنية وتوزعت هذه القوات.
Of course, we have deployed security forces extensively across the countryside of Latakia and Tartus. This was done to restore security and encourage people to return to their villages. Many have already returned, though some remain temporarily sheltered at the Hamimim base.
جزء قليل يعني محتمي بقاعة تحميمي.
The scene of some of the worst violence happened in the city of Jabla, when the pro-Assad militia attacked. What happened here may be the catalyst for what followed. Well, the government points out that it was Assad loyalists drawn from the Alawite community who carried out attacks on checkpoints like this in Jabla that had been previously calm. They say they were serious, coordinated attacks, as you can see from the destruction that's all around us. Much of the centre of town has been badly damaged in the fighting, and it's tense. General security convoys constantly patrol the city, home to Sunni civilians who were murdered like their Alawite neighbours. Imad Bitar's father, Talal, died after his car was fired upon by Assad fighters. This poster is Talal's funeral notice. Imad says he wants peace, but believes it'll only happen when Assad's fighters are captured.
We must find a way to live together. Our only demand now is for the remaining factions to leave Syria and for those responsible for the regime's crimes to face a formal trial. It's not about sectarian divisions, it's about justice.
In the village of Al-Sanaba, the Alawite community is still digging graves for murdered friends and relatives. They're still looking for bodies. The men who are digging these graves say they're far too scared to be filmed. They say if they are, there will be retribution against them. They say that this is the first time they've been able to bury the dead in the daylight. It's been too dangerous before now. Previously, all the graves, and there are 3 others around here, have been dug at night. They tell us so far they've buried 223 people. Some of the bodies were found in houses in the village, some were just out on the streets. All had been murdered. They say they think there are more bodies in fields around the village. On trucks, the bodies, wrapped in blankets and plastic, are brought to their final resting place, near their homes. These families have been devastated, and their anguish is obvious. Under a blistering sun, a simple ceremony is held. Then, side by side, they are buried. 2 communities are stricken with grief in this part of Syria, Sunni and Alawite alike. What happened here poses a real problem for the government trying to unite Syria. A Thursday, Friday and a Saturday that opened wounds that could take generations to heal.
Well, Stuart joins me now from Latakia in Syria. Truly violent scenes, Stuart. And the question now is how much control the new government has in a nation that has been so fractured for so long.
And remains very fractured. I think there's this commission of inquiry that they're setting up. We're not sure it's actually started yet, but they say that anyone who's found to have committed crimes will have to answer for those crimes. They've already said that crimes did take place. The problem is, and I think they pretty much know who did what, is that these militias are extremely powerful in their own right. So are they able to go there get hold of people, bring them to court? I'm not so sure. And there's another really interesting bit about this. Does the president, does the new government need those militias? And I think the argument is probably yes. The Assad forces could be as many as 20,000 men, the general security here tell us. And they say they were supported by Hezbollah. In fact, they say that this was basically a Hezbollah plot that had been worked on for a very long time. And tonight, there is an actual battle taking place with Hezbollah on the border with Lebanon. So more of the fighters are needed at the front lines. They're almost certainly going to come from Idlib, and many of the people that are thought to be responsible for what happened to the Alawites are from Idlib. So it's a difficult one for the president. He says he's going to bring them to court if he can, but he needs them, and that's going to be a problem right into the future.
Stuart, for the moment, thank you. Well, the defeat of ISIS during Syria's war left thousands of the militant group's fighters captured and for years now sitting in prisons. Most of them are held by Kurdish factions, whose territory you can see here in yellow and purple, stretching across the top of Syria and into the east. US Central Command estimates that more than 9,000 accused Islamic State fighters are locked up, including many foreigners. Our special correspondent, Alex Crawford, gained rare access to a jail in Hasaka and spoke to some of the inmates.
Panorama Prison is one of dozens teeming with men that no country wants. They're accused of being Islamic State fighters, and they've been locked up here for more than 6 years in northeast Syria.
This prison is ordinarily off limits. It's very rare to get access, not just for journalists, but also human rights organisations, aid groups, even lawyers. Inside these walls, these cells, there are what Syria considers some of the most dangerous foreign fighters that ISIS recruited.
They're still seen as a potent threat to the West, but also now a dangerous obstacle to peace in the new Syria.
Hi there. Hi, my name's Alex Crawford. I'm a British journalist from Sky News UK.
Okay. Hi, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you? And who are you?
How am I? I'm Hamza Parvez. I'm from Britain, from London. I'm 31 years old now.
Hamza, you seem very jolly for someone who's been in prison for a while.
I can't be crying, can I? Especially in front of the camera. Prison is not an easy place. But, you know, you guys came to us today as guests. You guys are our guests. I've got to put a smile on for you guys, right? Yeah. It's for you, it smiles for you.
Tell me why you joined the Islamic State and what are you thinking about it now?
I travelled to Syria really actually because of the Islamic ideology I had. I wanted to come to jihad. I actually wanted to. I'm not going to lie to you.
Did you take part in fighting?
In Syria?
Anywhere?
Well, you know, behind bars, I can't really take the smile and you'll understand.
Tell me what you think about the Islamic State now, because as far as Britain is concerned, British authorities, you joined up a prescribed terror organisation, and as far as they're concerned, you may well have taken part in terrorist atrocities.
No. So they call us terrorists. They call ISIS a terrorist organisation. Definitely did stuff. Definitely to terrorise the world. So that's right. Me now, you're asking me now, 2025. I believe that there was a lot of mistakes made. I believe a lot of different political situations and political directions that were taken should have been done very, very, very differently to actually bring the correct picture of Islam to the world. We had that one chance, and we didn't do exactly as it should be done.
Do you think that answered my question? I was saying that the British government still considers you a terror threat because you joined up a prescribed terrorist organisation. Are you a threat?
I can promise you, you can believe me or not, I can promise you that most of us are absolute no threat to anyone outside. I mean, we've had a lot of time. We've been now 6 years in prison. We've had a lot of time to sit and think and replan for ourselves. Most of the guys with me are married. Most of them have children. We've had a lot of time to sit back and think, really, what was it that we done?
He was the first Briton to publicly admit joining IS and got the nickname Hamza the Hungry after posting about missing fast food. In the prison, many seem to rue the collapse of the caliphate that carried out a string of atrocities and is blamed for the genocide of the Yazidi people. The prisoners are sealed off from the outside, and we're told not to tell them the Assad regime has fallen. This is what Sweden's Khaled Shahadi had to say.
What are your views towards ISIS now?
I don't really know what to say, but I don't even know if ISIS still exists or not right now.
Do you want them to exist?
So I don't know either.
What's your view about the group? Would you like to still see an ISIS-style caliphate?
I like to say caliphate here, but I don't know what ISIS-style caliphate is.
Well, the one that we saw between 2014 and 2019 was an ISIS caliphate, where Yazidis were taken as sex slaves, homosexuals were executed, extreme application of Sharia law.
There's no such thing as extreme application of Sharia. There's Sharia law and then there's no Sharia law. As Muslims, we should follow the Sharia law.
You still believe in the ISIS ideology?
I don't know what the ISIS ideology is.
Well, you knew enough for you to join up with them.
It's the only thing that was here when we were here.
There are lots of Muslim countries who apply Sharia law.
It depends what you believe Sharia law is.
What do you believe it is?
These countries that they claim that they have Sharia law, I don't believe it's Sharia law.
The Kurdish armed group, which has locked them up, believes the prisoners could be used by ISIS to make a comeback. The mainly Kurdish SDF, who are backed by the Americans, control this part of Syria, and they warned for some time that the Islamic State extremists are regrouping. Troops showed us last year how IS cells are operating again in several areas. Since December, the IS attacks have more than doubled, the soldiers tell us. And now they're fearful the extremists will break open the ISIS prisons to form a new extremist army. CCTV we've obtained shows it might already be happening. The images are ISIS wives and relatives escaping from the detention camps where they've been held for years. In one, you can see a woman clambering over the perimeter wall and then jumping down. She then coaxes her small child to join her. There are tens of thousands of ISIS family members in the camp behind, just like these escapees, who the authorities now fear will be easy prey for a resurgent terror group. There are pictures, too, of children throwing homemade Molotov cocktails in what camp managers believe is a rehearsal for an attack. The two ISIS family detention camps are desperate places, full of violence and festering social problems, and packed with children, many born here. This small protest would have been unheard of a few months ago.
This camp is actually a prison. It's not like how the people they think. We don't have no choice, no rights. We're just living here more than six years. Somebody is 8 years.
There are more than 50 nationalities held here, including Britons. But this mother of 5 from Germany says she's shunned ISIS and is now paying for it.
And it's every day to fight for your life. You have to fight for your life, to stay alive. It's every day the same.
The camps are also feeling the strain of uncertainty over the US foreign aid cuts, which the detainees depend on.
Every day, it's not even every day anymore, it's every hour. Are we going to make it through the next hour? What's going to happen? You know, and then you're hearing that the new government wants to take the camps.
Syria is in a state of transition and upheaval right now, with real questions over what happens to those accused of ISIS crimes. Londoner Hamza Parvez is one of them, and he wants to come home.
If we were to get the rights of dog in RSPCA, the dog compound in Vauxhall, you must know it, we would be very, very happy. We would be over the moon. We'd be over the moon. I mean, 6 years, Alex, I cannot explain to you. I cannot explain to you what's been happening, you know?
Okay, looks like that's the end of our interview. We were given a certain amount of time and it looks like it's finished. The conditions seem very basic. Everyone we've spoken to has said that they have no rights at all. And the problem is there's a big question mark on what happens to them now, especially with the whole of the country in such a state of flux.
Well, we heard there from some of the families of ISIS fighters. Many more are held in Al-Hol, a closed refugee camp guarded by Kurdish forces. As of 2023, Al-Hol was thought to contain more than 40,000 people, with 60 different nationalities among them. The World Health Organization says almost all are women and children who are either ISIS families or who'd fled fighting elsewhere in Syria. The camp is severely overcrowded. One aid group, Save the Children, describes it as dire. Alex Crawford also travelled there to speak to families trapped with nowhere to go.
This is dangerous ground for the Kurdish troops, so they go armed and in reinforced vehicles, ready for the attacks that they're regularly subjected to.
The threat of ISIS has increased both inside and outside the camp. Especially after the fall of the Syrian regime, it's gone up a lot, and we see attempts by them to escape on almost a daily basis.
They're guarding a mass of ISIS families where raids regularly find homemade bombs and guns. The detainees want out and they want revenge.
Oh, there they go. A lot of them throwing stones at the vehicle.
The situation has always been tense in these detention camps, but right now it's reaching boiling point. Some of these ISIS wives and families have been here for more than 6 years. Many of the children have been born here and don't like outsiders, particularly Western ones. In the women's market, it doesn't take long to discover where their allegiances lie. We love the Islamic State, she says. We're free in the Islamic State. Here, we are captives. We're going to behead you, they're saying, alongside cutting motions. Young ones right now, but they're feared to be the next generation of cubs of the caliphate if they don't get rehabilitation or psychological help. There are more than 20,000 children here, 60% of the camp, and they've known little else other than this caged upbringing. They, like everyone else here, taunt their Kurdish guards that ISIS will soon be back, in control and freeing them.
They say ISIS will come and they've got outside groups working with them. ISIS has never ended. ISIS lives on, and our duty is to try and protect and defend.
The ISIS attacks have more than doubled in the past few months. Here, the Kurdish security forces raid another sleeper cell. Syria's Kurdish minority in their enclave in the northeast have been feeling very vulnerable. The tens of thousands of people in the IS detention camps in their midst are seen as a real danger to them. I don't know what's going to happen, the manager of Al-Hol detention camp tells us, but it's a dangerous time. Maybe there'll be massacres against us Kurds. They'll take our women, our girls. I don't know what's going to happen. The Al-Hol camp fence is breached on an almost daily basis, and the commander overseeing security insists the Kurds can't deal with the ISIS threat on their own. Look, they've cut it here too, he says.
We want this ISIS issue to be resolved, but this requires the international coalition, America, France, Britain, all the coalition, to help so we can fight ISIS.
Hours after we talk to him, a family tries to break out of the camp. We're told they are later caught and returned. The camp management expect they'll try again and again and will probably succeed in time. The momentous agreement between the Kurdish SDF and Syria's new government, which will see them merge into one national armed force, comes after years of the Kurds defending themselves from threats in this enclave. It also means the new leader will have key Syrian support from an armed group with powerful American backing. And the new president gets control of this, oil. The bulk of Syria's oil reserves are in the mainly Kurdish northeast, which have been guarded and controlled by the US-supported SDF. We were taken on a tour of the oil fields, which the new president wants under his control, and are key to Syria's economic revival, alongside the lifting of crippling international sanctions. Syria's a mix of competing interests. The oil workers show us footage of a bombing they blame on their Turkish neighbours. The wreckage stands as a reminder of the battle over this territory. Turkey's always viewed the Kurdish armed groups who guard the oil as a serious threat to its security and linked to a long insurgency inside Turkey. Merging with the new government forces that pro-Turkish armed groups helped get into power may be a way of quelling concerns in Ankara. There are Russian bases too in the northeast and west coast, and elsewhere Israeli forces in the Golan Heights as well as southern areas, they say, to protect the Druze minority. It is a dangerous time for Syria, with ISIS on the rise, a devastating outbreak of sectarian killing, and a new leader trying to govern a country torn apart by years of civil war. And it's the minorities who are the most worried. Alex Crawford, Sky News, in Kurdish-controlled northeast Syria.
We're back to Stuart Ramsay in Latakia. And Stuart, we saw the legacy of Islamic State in Alex's reporting there. But how significant is it that that alliance of Kurdish-led militia, which controls northeastern Syria, has agreed to get on board with the interim government in Damascus?
I think it's really, really significant. The SDF is a very powerful force, but much more importantly, they represent the Kurds, and they want the Kurds to come on board because ultimately what the government is trying to do is unite the country. It's incredibly divided at the moment. That's what they want to do, and this is a really major breakthrough. Also, very importantly, the northeast has an awful lot of oil, and the government needs all of the revenues it can get from that. The SDF is a very powerful force, and it's been backed, obviously, by the United States for a long time. It has a lot of weapons, and as we mentioned earlier, he may need their support. And interestingly, there's much discussion here. Is it possible that the SDF could be used around this Alawite problem, because they, as a protecting force here, perhaps, if you like, doing the police work, if you like, would be acceptable to the Alawites. Whether the SDF will do that or not, we don't know. And certainly the government at the moment, I've asked them about this question, says they don't need them. But if this situation worsens in any way, they may have to consider that. So I think this is a big development.
Stuart Ramsay, live for us there in Latakia. Thank you. Well, today, at an international donors conference in Brussels, pledges were made of $6.5 billion to help Syria. But it seems like a drop in the ocean for a country whose reconstruction could cost as much as $400 billion and where 13 million people don't know where their next meal will come from. And with international aid budgets, particularly in the US and the UK, being slashed, it only leaves the question of where the money might come from, as UN agencies warn the opportunity to help Syria is urgent and must be seized now.
What's it like doing this kind of stuff when he's not here?
Yeah, I miss him. He just inspired me to be a better person. He's shown us what living looks like in the toughest and most difficult of circumstances.
I'm Greg Milam, and I'm Sky's Chief North of England correspondent.
Mandatory evacuation, you must leave!
For many people, Harvey is far from over. People here believe the water will be this deep for weeks. I've reported from around the world and around the UK. It isn't what politicians see from election battle buses, but what ordinary people see from the buses that shape the timetable of their lives.
I feel like there's no trust between the people and the politicians.
Labour's going to get in definitely, and they're no better than the Conservatives.
It is almost impossible to predict where these fires will go next. Ida has certainly left its mark on New Orleans.
It just feels heartbreaking.
Cartels in Mexico are flooding America with the drug. We are standing on the supply line right into the heart of America's opioid crisis. This gives you an idea of the strength of those winds, strong enough to bend and twist metal. Sky News, the full story first. Christchurch has been changed forever by what happened here.
There was a river of blood coming out of the mosque. That's a scene that you don't forget.
Are you trying to run me over, Sir Philip?
No, go away.
Look like it, sir. Will you respond to those who made accusations, Sir Philip?
Can you go away?
A very good morning to you all.
Morning.
Do you regret the tweet, Gary?
There's no sign, publicly at least, of either side being willing to give ground. Brianna's dad told Sky News what he thinks of them.
If I'm honest, I hate them. They're just
evil, there'll always be monsters.
Free wherever you get your news. How do you reassure the public that all of these mistakes wouldn't be made again?
God forbid we should have to do this again.
Sky News get the full story first.
Is this now all your territory?
Yeah.
The battlefield is outside the barricades. We are in the middle of a forest, in a jungle really, and they're attempting to keep these men alive. I'm Stuart Ramsay, and I'm Sky's chief correspondent.
It's really dangerous. Many people have died riding it.
We are under Israeli military restrictions in terms of some of the things that we can film, but it's important to be in there. What a slow drive for the president as he approaches his golf club. 4 more years! Free wherever you get your news. I'm Mark Stone and I'm Sky's correspondent based here in Washington, D.C.
We've got your Sunday mornings covered. From the front page and the sounds of the streets to the voices of the people who make the major calls and big picture politics beyond Westminster. We'll put you at the heart of our story. I'm ready. Are you? Join me, Trevor Phillips, Sunday mornings on Sky News.
Welcome back. Well, following the fall of Bashar al-Assad, the scale of hunger in Syria, already bad, has not improved. Malnutrition is high, particularly among under-5s, which the World Food Programme says is now at emergency levels. A little earlier, I spoke to Carl Scow, the organisation's Deputy Executive Director and Chief Operating Officer. Carl Scow, thank you so much for joining us. What is the overall picture in Syria right now? How bad is food insecurity?
Well, the food security situation is pretty grim. Some 13 million people are food insecure and 3 million of those acutely food insecure. The situation before the transition was really bad, but frankly, it hasn't improved enough since then. And so that was really my message at the conference today, that donors need to step up. We have the capacity, we have the access, we have the collaboration now with the authorities, but we need the funding to really step up and do more. The Syrian people need to sense this, the dividends, the change, and they are not sensing that right now.
And yet, do you have concerns about help being forthcoming, given in America, USAID, US aid is scaled back, and budgets here in the UK too, for example, international development budgets also falling short?
Yeah, you know, we were assisting some 4 million people only a few years ago, and that had been cut back, so we are now supporting maybe 1.5 up to 2 million people. But that's far from enough. As I said, over 10 million people are food insecure and 3 million acutely food insecure. And we need to go beyond, of course, assisting with food assistance. We need to now start rebuilding the national food systems. We need to start recovering bakeries and get the bread, national bread systems up and running. And so there is lots to do, and we have the capacity and the presence to do it, but the funding is lacking. And I think the general sense at the meeting we had today was that, you know, this is a now or never moment. We really need to deliver on this window of opportunity, because soon that window will begin closing.
So how important then is food insecurity in terms of overall stability for a country like Syria, which has gone through such seismic change?
I mean, food security is, you know, critical for any stability. And so really stepping up on the food side will be important, not only to address the humanitarian needs and to allow mothers to put food on the table for their children, but really to take forward the transition to bring peace and to bring stability and prosperity to Syria. It is the basic commodity that everyone needs, and I think we have an opportunity now to deliver on this change, to really create also a sense of change in the country, and that is urgent.
We've seen recent violence in Syria. Each time there is a flashpoint, how much harder does it make your job?
No, obviously it's concerning to see, but I think it should rather reinforce the urgency of doing more. Because unless the Syrian people feel that there is this change that is coming with this transition, I think, you know, the risks of violence, the risks of fragmentation will be even greater. So I think, you know, that was really the message that I brought to the table today, is that, you know, it's on us now, it's on the international community. We need to step up and do more and do it differently so that the Syrian people really feel that there is change and that they can believe in that change.
Over 1 million people, it is estimated, have returned to Syria. How much harder does it make for organisations like you? How much extra pressure does it give?
Yeah, it does, because we did not assist the host communities enough already before. So in a way, you have a crisis already there, and now you have people arriving, which often has nothing. And so, you know, it will be equally important not only supporting those who are returning, but also supporting those vulnerable communities where they are returning to. And it's an integrated and holistic kind of support. You cannot only provide food, obviously. You need to provide a borehole so that there is water. There needs to be some element of education so that children, families with children want to return. And there obviously need to be support for families and people to start rebuilding their lives, getting their house or shelter back, and beginning to get some kind of livelihood as well.
And is there a concern that this fractious country could fracture, and would that be a bad thing for Syria?
No doubt this peace is fragile, and so that's why we are really urging now the international community to step up and do more. And we think that, you know, providing food security is a first step, and it will allow and provide the necessary sense of change that is needed for the Syrian people to really believe in this change.
Carl Scow from the World Food Programme, thank you.
Thank you for having me on.
Well, this is The World with me, Anna Botting. Next up, controversial at home in Ireland, now visiting the White House. We'll tell you what Conor McGregor had to say when he met the president.
welcome to the world.
Our new podcast, starting now. It's very exciting. Every week we'll be reporting from the world's trouble spots.
We get to hold those in positions of power accountable, and we get to ask the questions that the audience, the listeners, want to know about.
And that's why it is so important that people tune in, come along for the road, come along for the journey. It'll be fun.
Well, a judge is tonight ordering the Trump administration to explain whether it defied a court order by deporting hundreds of Venezuelans. The White House says all are violent criminals, but legal experts are questioning the legality of their forced removal. Here's our US correspondent, James Matthews.
It's Deportation, the movie. It could yet end in a constitutional crisis. This was the TV production by the El Salvadorian government as it jailed Venezuelan migrants deported from America. The story here is that more than 200 were put on a plane, but not in front of a judge. The Trump administration used a wartime law to remove them from the country without a judicial hearing.
It's an invasion, and these are criminals, many criminals, murderers, drug dealers at the highest level, drug lords, people from mental institutions. That's an invasion. They invaded our country. So this is, in that sense, this is war.
The Alien Enemies Act of 1798 has only been used 3 times before in the United States. Its use this time was in spite of a judge's order. In a Saturday night ruling, Judge James Boasberg ruled that deportation be stopped, even if it meant turning the planes around. The US government says the aircraft were already over international waters. Oopsie, too late, was the response from El Salvador's president. A friend of Trump's paid $6 million for his help. Looming constitutional crisis is the view of Trump opponents, concerned about his regard for the law.
We have very serious concerns that the government did not comply with a federal court order, and so we're going to have to see what the government says when the judge questions them, but there's a lot at stake here.
The deportees are said to be members of the Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua. They're seen here attacking apartment owners in Colorado. Their presence in the United States has become a problem.
You don't have to go home, but...
The White House didn't share the tone of concern at the removal. On social media, it put the deportation to music, Closing Time by Semisonic, although the band say they didn't give permission for the music to be used.
We are unafraid to message effectively what the president is doing on a daily basis to make our communities safer. And the specific video you referenced, I think it sums up our immigration policy pretty well. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here.
Rasha Alawi is another deportation story hitting the headlines and theme of the day. The Rhode Island doctor was prevented from re-entering America and deported to Lebanon, despite a judge's order blocking her removal. Her plight played out on social media. The Department of Homeland Security said she'd attended the funeral of a Hezbollah leader. This was the response from the official White House account. It is a Trump stress test of the courts and for opponents who see deportations as a test case with far-reaching implications for the law. If he can break it here, they say, he can break it anywhere. James Matthews, Sky News in Washington.
Well, the Irish mixed martial arts fighter Conor McGregor has offered his thoughts on immigration during a visit to the Oval Office today.
Happy Paddy's Day, America!
The 36-year-old appeared at the White House during his St. Patrick's Day visit to Washington, D.C., telling officials Ireland had abandoned the voices of the people of Ireland over immigration. He's faced legal problems recently, being ordered to pay £257,000 to a woman who sued him for sexual assault. He denied those accusations. Our senior Ireland correspondent, David Blevins, spoke to Conor McGregor after the meeting. Have a listen.
Conor, what did you say to the president? What did you say?
He's had a great meeting with him. He's a great man. I told him his work rate is outstanding, and I wish him all the best.
Conor, the Taoiseach says you don't speak for the people of Ireland. Your response to that?
I am an employer of over 200 people almost 300 people in the country of Ireland. He's an employer of none. Every available metric available to us has shown that the government of Ireland currently has failed the people of Ireland. In 10 years, Dublin city centre has gone from one of the most safest cities in Europe to one of the most dangerous. So shame on him for saying that, speaking down on an Irishman. I won't speak about him personally. Throw a jab, I could throw many jabs at them. I could throw jabs handily at them. However, I speak on the metrics, and the metrics show they've failed the people of Ireland. They do not represent the people of Ireland.
Conor,
and I'm
what
here.
do you say to people who feel it's inappropriate for you to be here, given...
God bless Ireland, God bless America.
Well, this is The World with me, Anna Botting. Next up, Canada's new Prime Minister, Mark Carney, has met King Charles at Buckingham Palace. But what did they discuss?
Here we go.
2, 1.
Sophie.
The big announcement. The battle for number 10.
The drone is above us.
It is a chaotic scene.
They've asked us to leave.
It is a clear Labour landslide.
The car is covered in.
Liberated but left in ruins.
A major incident has been declared.
That's when misinformation floods the zone.
It became clear the media weren't welcome.
These extraordinary images.
Must have taken viewers.
Who wants to talk about politics?
OK, stand by.
I wouldn't be asking it if I didn't think it was a relevant question.
The winner of the 2024 presidential election.
Quite extraordinary events.
There are dozens of people desperately clambering to get onto that boat. It is a chaotic scene, but it's being watched by dozens of French police officers on the beach.
I'm Adam Parsons, Sky's Europe correspondent based here in Brussels.
It's not just homes, but whole streets like this one that have been reduced to rubble.
Getting the chance to tell people's stories, it's a privilege.
In February 2022, Russia invaded Ukraine. Thousands of Russians were drafted. For some, the reality of frontline warfare meant one thing: desertion.
I had a rush of adrenaline. It was a kind of treason.
But they did not escape on their own.
I help people to desert Russian army.
The stakes are high, but for some, there's no other option.
We keep going till Putin's regime is over.
Escaping Putin on Sky News.
The judge made it very clear that she could see no justifiable reason why Sakulas wasn't here facing British justice.
I promised I would get him justice.
Sky News, get the full story first. It's legal to let go. Set the speed and take the hands off. I'm Lisa Dowd and I'm Sky's Midlands correspondent.
Our app gives you the very best of Sky News wherever you are. Breaking news, videos and analysis.
Evidence of the crisis.
Podcasts, watching us live.
I'm live in Jerusalem.
Wherever you get your podcast.
All in one place and all at just the touch of a screen. The Sky News app. Get the full story first.
Sky News, get the full story first.
Is this now all your territory?
Yeah.
The battlefield is outside the barricades. We are in the middle of a forest, in a jungle really, and they're attempting to keep these men alive. I'm Stuart Ramsay, and I'm Sky's chief correspondent. It's really dangerous. Many people have died riding it.
We are under Israeli military restrictions in terms of some of the things that we can film. But it's important to be in there. What a slow drive for the president as he approaches his golf club.
4 more years!
Free wherever you get your news. I'm Mark Stone and I'm Sky's correspondent based here in Washington, DC.
They're disrespectful, they're not helpful, and they need to stop. Canada's new Prime Minister tonight challenged the US President to stop suggesting his country could become the 51st state. Mark Carney, who is former Governor of the Bank of England, made those comments during a trip to Europe. His visit coincides with a downgrade in Canada's economic outlook because of the impact of tariffs. A warning that Gurpreet Narwan's report contains flash photography.
Prime Minister of Canada, Your Majesty. Your Majesty.
Broad smiles and warm handshakes.
soft diplomacy in this aggressive new world order.
Yeah, it's a great treat. It's lovely. There's much to catch up on. Okay.
Mark Carney, Canada's new Prime Minister, back in London, strengthening old alliances as his country comes under sustained economic and political attack from its American neighbour. He was looking for firm support from his British counterpart.
We're at a point in history where the world is being reordered, and your leadership, the leadership of the UK, I think can be decisive.
There were warm words from Starmer.
The relationship between our two countries has always been strong. Two sovereign allies, so much in common.
But no joint press conference. The British Prime Minister wasn't taking questions. He has our own relationship with the US to think about. Trump has threatened to annex Canada, making it the US's 51st state, and has already slapped painful tariffs on their goods. Carney talking tough.
Look, we can stand up for ourselves. It's Canada strong. We can stand up for ourselves. We've called out those comments. They will have to stop before we sit down and have a conversation about our broader partnership with the United States.
But also some economic realism from the former central banker.
There is a limit, full stop. There is a limit to matching these tariffs dollar for dollar, given the fact that our economy is a tenth the size of the United States.
Carney's day had begun in Paris, Europe also in Trump's firing line.
Canada, the most European of non-European countries.
In this age of tectonic change, where the distance between neighbours is widening, Canada has crossed an ocean to slot in with the Europeans. Gurpreet Narwan, Sky News.
Well, we will finish up our programme tonight. We're looking ahead to a hugely significant phone call tomorrow. That is the one between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin. It's been confirmed by both sides. And speaking on Air Force One, President Trump reiterated his belief that there is a very good chance the war in Ukraine can come to an end.
We're doing pretty well, I think, with Russia. And we'll see if we have something to announce maybe by Tuesday. I'll be speaking to President Putin on Tuesday, and a lot of work's been done over the weekend. We want to see if we can bring that war to an end.
Well, our defence and security analyst, Professor Michael Clark, has more.
This call comes on the back of a weekend of a fairly intensive diplomacy between Washington and Moscow, talking about the details of a ceasefire, a 30-day ceasefire. Undoubtedly, President Putin will have wanted these details to go on in order to delay the moment when he has to either agree to a 30-day ceasefire or not. And undoubtedly, President Trump tomorrow will be saying to him on the call, what's the problem? Why can't we move on to a ceasefire fairly quickly? Because there are a lot of things on the table, says President Putin. One of the things that won't be on the table tomorrow really is Kursk. The Kursk operation that the Ukrainians initiated early last August is now finished. Effectively, the Ukrainians have been pushed out of Kursk. Last week, Putin and Trump both said that the Ukrainians were surrounded. That wasn't true, even though President Trump repeated almost word for word what President Putin has said. The Ukrainians are holding on still to a little bit of a sliver, about 15 kilometres wide, of southern Kursk region. They've been pushed out of the main area of Sudza, so they've lost the enclave, which they did have from last August, but they've been able to get out. It's been a bit of a scramble over the weekend. They've lost some men, they've certainly lost some equipment, but they certainly have not been surrounded, so they're now moving back onto their own side of the border. In effect, the Kursk operation is now finished. The question we have to ask ourselves is, while these 15,000 Ukrainian troops have withdrawn, the 60,000 Russian troops who were in Kirk to throw them out, 60,000, they will undoubtedly be redeployed. So where will they be redeployed? It'll take 2 or 3 weeks, give them a bit of rest and rehabilitation, give them a bit of retraining and re-equipment. They'll turn up somewhere else on the battlefield. Where? My guess is it'll be somewhere around Pokrovsk, because in this area, in Pokrovsk, in Chaziv Yar, in Kostiantynivka, all of the areas around here are the areas where the Russians really want to make a strategic gain. And if they bring those troops round and if they have some effect in 2 or 3 weeks' time, then we'll certainly see it. And that will be yet another reason for President Putin not to want to go into an immediate 30-day ceasefire.
Michael Clark there for us. Well, Donald Trump said he would speak to President Putin about land and power plants. Everyone concerned about what the power plants are. And certainly today that question was put to the White House communications spokesperson. They will discuss a power plant bordering Ukraine and Russia in this phone call to come tomorrow. The White House gave no details, may have been referring to the Russian-occupied Zaporizhzhia facility in Ukraine. It is Europe's largest nuclear plant. Russia and Ukraine have accused each other of risking an accident at the plant with their actions. Meantime, Italy and Spain made clear today they were not ready to back an EU proposal to pledge up to 40 billion euros in military aid for Ukraine this year, with each country contributing according to the size of its economy. The plan put forward by the EU's foreign policy chief. I will be speaking to her for this show tomorrow. Well, that is all from The World for tonight. I'll be back in just a moment with Sky News at 10. Do stay with us if you can.
We've got your Sunday mornings covered. From the front page and the sounds of the streets to the voices of the people who make the major calls and big picture politics beyond Westminster. We'll put you at the heart of our story.
I'm ready. Are you?
Join me, Trevor Phillips, Sunday mornings on Sky News.
We're rolling.
Welcome to the world.
Our new podcast, starting now. It's very exciting. Every week, we'll be reporting from the world's trouble spots.
We get to hold those in positions of power accountable, and we get to ask the questions that the audience, the listeners, want to know about.
And that's why it is so important that people tune in, come along for the road, come along for the journey. It'll be fun.